All right, how about this one? What miracles were done in Bethsaida? Now, Bethsaida is a little town just in the north of the Sea of Galilee. Jerusalem's way down here. North of the Sea of Galilee. Here's Bethsaida. Capernaum's one of my favorite towns to go to, but when you go to Capernaum, we'll see a little bit later, you actually stood where Jesus stood. And there's a bunch of other towns. Here's a new town. Well, I don't know how new it is. It's newly discovered synagogue in Magdala, which is where Mary Magdalene is from. And you got Tiberias right here. In any event, the Sermon on the Mount is right about in this area, just north of Capernaum. And Bethsaida is supposed to have a miracle done there. And here's what Matthew says about the miracle. He records Jesus pronouncing the following judgment. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. Now here is the puzzle right here. The puzzle is this. What mighty works have been done in Bethsaida? Matthew doesn't record Jesus doing any. So it's kind of a mystery as to, well, why would they repent? They haven't seen any miracles. Matthew, what are you talking about? Well, as you could imagine, there's going to be an answer to this, but in order to get the answer, we've got to go to number 5. We're going to come back to number 4. This is a great mystery here. This is the feeding of the 5,000. And Jesus asks Philip where to get food. You say, so what? You'll see why here in a minute, why this is kind of a mystery. John leaves a puzzle. At the feeding of the 5,000, John records Jesus asking Philip, where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat? Now, why is that a puzzle? Other than, well, Jesus is going to do a miracle. He doesn't need to ask them. But forget that for a second. Why would that be a puzzle if you're reading that? At least a little bit of a question. You'd go, Philip? What do you think?
He's not the treasurer?
Yeah, he's not the treasurer. In fact, he's not really anybody big. If you want to feed 5,000 people, who might you ask?
Judas?
Well, Judas, maybe he has the money, right? Peter, the fisherman, or John, right? One of the more prominent leaders. So the puzzle for me is, why is Jesus asking Philip, a minor character, about where to get a lot of money and food, instead of asking a leader such as Peter and John? Right? You got a big problem here. You're not going to talk to a guy who isn't really a leader. You're probably going to talk to somebody who could probably get something done, right? Like Peter, the fisherman, or John, or somebody like that. Somebody who's already proved him or herself. Well, what's the solution? The solution is that Luke has the missing puzzle piece that solves John. And this is kind of an intricate one. Luke, and only Luke, mentions that Bethsaida was the location of the feeding of the 5,000. You say, so what? Who's from Bethsaida? John, in other contexts, tells us that Philip is from Bethsaida. Now, suddenly, it's starting to make sense, right? What sense is it making? John and Luke interlock to help us solve the puzzle. Jesus is asking Philip because he's from Bethsaida. It's like if I came to your town and a whole bunch of people needed to get fed, I'm asking you where to get the food, right? Yeah. You don't ask John or you don't ask Peter. They're not from there. So now you're going, I get it. We wouldn't know that from John alone. Luke tells us the who, John tells us the who, while Luke tells us the where. Thus, the accounts are complementary. So, not only does John affirm Luke, and Luke solves Matthew, and Mark solves Luke, now you've got Luke solving John. So you have John solving Luke earlier, now you got Luke solving John. They're interlocked. They're interlocked. Now let's go back to the one we were at. What miracle was done in Bethsaida? The feeding of the 5,000. But Matthew doesn't mention the feeding of the 5,000 until chapter 14. Why? Because his gospel is arranged thematically rather than chronologically. Matthew's not giving you a chronological account. He's giving you a thematic account. So if you're just reading along, you'd go, well, wait a minute, I haven't heard about any miracle in Bethsaida. Why is Jesus getting all judgmental against Bethsaida? He hadn't done any miracles there. In fact, one of the reasons that Luke may have written this in the opening verses of his gospel, I He said, I asked people about this. He essentially interviewed eyewitnesses because I wanted to write an orderly account for you, O excellent Theophilus. Why do you think he's writing orderly? Maybe because the other accounts weren't necessarily orderly. They were more thematic, like Matthew. So these or interlocking puzzle pieces from Luke, John, and Matthew, can you get the complete picture? You've got three Gospels now interacting on this one issue or this one event. So not only do you got Luke affirming, or John affirming Luke, and Luke affirming Matthew, and Mark affirming Luke, and Luke affirming John, now you've got Luke affirming Matthew again. Oh, one other thing about Bethsaida. It's actually been discovered, they think it's been discovered anyway, that this is a picture from an archaeological shot of Bethsaida right here. They have a fisherman's house, they think, right here. And they also have a live fish tank, this woman coming out of it. And these are the references to Bethsaida here in the New Testament. Phillip, Andrew, and Peter spent some time there, but Philip is really from there. And John, Matthew, Mark, and Luke all talk about Bethsaida. But only when you piece together this story from all sorts of different points in these four Gospels do you get the complete picture as to what's going on.